want to look a little bit at that gospel that we had, that we can see, got to get the right one here. Here we go. That the parents with Jesus at the Passover. And so, again, notice this Holy Family. It says they went down every year to the Passover. Again, from Galilean region, Nazareth, where they went, probably about 70 miles, several days. They went with their extended family, but they were faithful to their Jewish practice, to their Jewish understanding of what God called for them to be. And so we see the story, we've heard it, Jesus is 12 and he goes with them. And then all of a sudden, they're leaving, and so the boy Jesus remained behind. His parents did not know it. And thinking he was in the caravan, they journeyed on for a day. And then they began looking for him among relatives and acquaintances. They didn't find him. How do you think they must have felt in that moment? Were they, oh God, I know he's fine, everything's going to be good? They were parents, they were anguished. What happened to him? They probably had some guilt. Gee, we should have paid more attention. This is our 12-year-old kid. They certainly must have had some fear. Are we going to find him? And then, they go back to Jerusalem, and it takes 3 days before they find him in the temple. Can we even begin to imagine the emotions of those parents when they went through that? When they must have had fear, guilt, and just worry so totally. And then we see, okay, they do find him in the temple, and they were astonished. And what's Mary's response when they find him there? And again, probably a lot of moms and dads could quote this for your own kids. Son, why have you done this to us? And a lot of times, I remember my mother said that a lot to me when I was a teenager. It was a different circumstance. I wasn't the son of God, but you know that already, right? But anyway, they were concerned and did feel somehow negated and slighted in some way. I mean, gone. Wasn't he concerned about them? Couldn't he have said to them, hey, by the way, I'm going to hang around the temple a little longer, or could you wait for me? He didn't do that. In some way, we often think of Jesus as the perfect one without sin. Well, we can say without sin when we define it as something very strong that distances one from God and others. This certainly, as a kid, he maybe just wasn't fully aware of what he was doing. He certainly didn't have the sensitivity like a lot of times people growing up don't have toward their parents. And so he gives that response, when she says, why have you done this? And she's in such anguish. What's his response? Is this sensitivity to his parents? Why were you looking for me? Did you not know I must be in my Father's house? Wouldn't part of you wanted to kind of go after him and say, that's no way to talk to your parents, And yet that's what he did. And in some way we can say that was insensitive. That was not very thoughtful of what his parents were going through and all the anguish they had. But then notice, Luke does go on and say this, that even though they didn't fully understand him, he, Jesus, went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. He probably had a little lesson and talk about obedience. And so Luke makes the point, from that situation, okay, now he's much more aware of and obedient to his parents. And then his mother kept all these things in her heart. We hear that often about Mary, that she was someone in situations that could be difficult, that could be, we're just not sure what's going on here, to step back prayerfully and try to sort it all out and be prayerful. Probably all of us at times need to look back, especially in family life, at situations that maybe at the time we don't get it and there's a lot of hurt and conflict, but later on we step back, try to look at it, get a perspective, ask God to help us see it and go on. And that's what Mary did. And then this last statement that Luke makes, and Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. Right away, there can be a tendency to think, well, wasn't Jesus God or the Son of God, so didn't he have it all together? No. He had to grow and evolve as we all do. Our doctrine says he was like us in all things but sin, that radical separation from God. So he was like us. He had to learn, he had to grow, he had to gain wisdom over time. And certainly look to Mary and Joseph to give him that wisdom and that guidance, probably even right here in a special way. So it reminds us that for every one of us, we're a work in progress, including Jesus. And we're reminded in part, I want to go back to one of the very important virtues that St. Paul talks about in that letter to the Colossians. Because I think for Jesus, for all of us, this is important, especially in family life. You know, St. Paul proclaims the ideal of what it means to be a Christian community or family. We need to know the ideals. You know, live with heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Yes, we need to know those ideals. We need to try to live them. And we know we also fall short of them. And that's why the very next sentences that Paul says, bear with one another and forgive one another. If one has a grievance against another, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also do. So recognizing we fall short of the ideals, and it's important that we understand that ability to forgive one another, to know God forgives us. Finally, one quick example. You've heard me mention this before too. My stepdad was alcoholic, and when my mom and he separated for the good of me and the family, I was in third grade. And obviously for a lot of years, my mom and me had hurts, had resentments, about what happened there. Well, 18 years later, they had been separated. I was just ordained. My mom had become Catholic in the meantime, and my stepdad got cancer. And I had no one else. He had no other family to be with him or to help him. My mom went back to live with him for those last 2 years of his life and take care of him. And I know the reason she was able to do that more deeply is because growing in faith in the Catholic Christian community, in a relationship with Jesus Christ, she and I both learned the importance of God's forgiveness toward us and for us to pass it on. It was the teaching of our church, of Jesus and his grace, that helped both of us to be able to do that. And so the last couple of years of his life, we were together as a family in some very real way, knowing there had been hurts, imperfections, resentments, but moving through that and beyond that with the love of God in Jesus Christ. So for every one of us here today, whatever our family situation, is it perfect? No. Do we need to strive to be better? Yes. Do we need especially to be able to forgive one another and ourselves as the Lord has forgiven us? Yes. So, holy family doesn't have to mean perfect. Holy family doesn't mean there aren't struggles and so forth, but holy family may mean that we keep coming back to the Lord, and with his help, being there with and for each other. Take a quiet moment and let's see what each of us need to hear and remember from this. God bless you.